Yo, what's going on, guys? This is Houston Sports Talk back in the video today. And today, the Boston Celtics have signed Chris Boucher to a one-year, $3.3 million deal. Now, the Boston actually had to trade George Niang and 2 second-round picks for R.J. Lewis in order to make this signing. This is a dumping, George Niang's salary. He was the guy that Porzingis, they got back in the Porzingis deal. And actually, Boucher is not even making, in this deal, half of what Niang was going to make last year. Niang was going to make $8 million next season. So I actually really like this deal for Boston. I really like Niang. He's the nearest you can get to 40% three-point shooter at 39.9 in his career. He was 41% this year. He averaged 9 points per game with the Cavs and 12 with the Hawks. I think he's a really good player. But the one thing I also know is he's a really poor defender. And not only is he a real poor defender, but I don't think he brings much more value outside of his great three-point shooting and solid scoring. I think the rebounding is solid, but the defense is really bad. And Chris Boucher, I think, in my opinion, is not, he's not that. He is a great defender. He's also a good scorer. 17 minutes per game last season. He's not as good as a three-point shooter as, George Niang is, but he's not bad. 36.3% last season with Toronto. He averaged 10 points per game. He averaged only half a block per game this year, and nearly 1 steal per game, but he's solid defensively. He led the Raptors in all the following stats: points, rebounds, blocks, minutes, all time for a player off the bench. He is the all-time leader in points, rebounds, blocks, and minutes for a player off the bench. So I think he's a great player to have off the bench, and he is about $4.5 million cheaper than George Niang. Not to mention they also get R.J. Lewis, who averaged 18 points per game at St. John's last year. We'll see how much of an opportunity he gets next season with, being a two-way contract guy, but at the same time, that Boston could be a place where you could be taking advantage next year if you're a two-way contract guy, because Boston has lost a lot. They have traded away Porzingis, and they have traded away Holiday. They have lost Jason Tatum. They have lost Luke Cornett in free agency. They're about to lose Al Horford in free agency, whether he goes to the Warriors or he retires. So, it's just a lot for Boston next season that they're going to be losing compared to last season. And I think that we are going to see a completely different team, and they could be really bad next year, and R.J. Lewis could get an opportunity. And we'll see what he does in that opportunity. But, yeah, and Boston does a great job of developing guys as well. So we will see what happens with him. But I like the signing of Chris Boucher. If he does well next season, once Boston, we know he is a great player to have off the bench. I don't think he's going to be doing that much next season. He's been doing it a lot for Toronto in his time with Toronto. I don't know why they ever didn't trade him, because he had a lot of value, I think, in a couple years ago, and they never ever moved him. Like, he averaged 14 points per game and 7 rebounds per game after the 2020-21 season. And that the next year or two, after the 21-22 season, the last 3 years, they've been kind of going into rebuild, and they've just never moved him. And I don't know how much interest there actually was. I know the Nuggets were one team that had a little bit of interest in him this trade deadline, but now he signed with the Celtics. And I think for Boston, he's an addition that where he can become a starter for the first time in his career. He's played over 400 games and only started in 23. And so he can become a starter with Boston for this year because they're banged up. And if he does really well, Boston really likes what he does, since he's a guy that can be great off the bench. I think this could be a thing for Boston where they sign Boucher to an extension either during the season or after the season. I think we all know once Tatum gets back, things are going to be a little bit more serious for Boston. And once that happens, Boucher is a guy I think could help off the bench for the Celtics once they get Tatum back. Let me know your thoughts on the signing for Boston in the comment section, and peace out.